I want to introduce you to someone very important to my journey, very important indirectly to your journey, most importantly to someone that most people and most of you as students don't believe exists. I call her CTA Yvonne. She is me, who I was, my CTA self. And I say that most students don't believe she exists because it's very easy to look at someone in front of a class who's got the letters behind their name, who's all finished with their journey, and not realize how hard their journey was. Most students will say things like, yeah, but you've got it all together, or you were fine, you passed, you don't understand what I'm going through, or whatever. I understand all of that. So I think it's important that you meet her, probably because if you realize how much of a mess she was, and yet she managed to turn into me, then perhaps there's hope for you yet. So when I started CTA, as much as I'd heard all the horror stories, it was a horrifying experience. I was a perfectionist. I always wanted to do well. I had never failed anything before I hit CTA. And I had never felt so stupid in my life as I did in CTA. From the day that I started, I was behind. I could never catch up. I could never keep up. It was impossible. There's no way that I could keep up with what I was supposed to be doing. And it felt like I was falling downhill from one moment to the next, just barely holding it together. I wrote test 1 and I failed manic. I had never failed anything in my life. It absolutely destroyed me. I still studied. I carried on studying, but I think I left my head behind. I didn't really have my head and my heart in the game. To this day, I can't quite tell you why I didn't give up. I can't quite tell you why I didn't just deregister, because there was no way that I thought that this was going to be okay. I'd failed something, and so I believed that was it. I was going to fail. In my head, I equated test 1 with the final exam. I kind of said, well, I failed test 1 for manic, so therefore I will fail test 2, 3, 4 and the final exam. And I put the 2 points right on top of each other. I failed test 1, therefore I am going to fail. And I think it's really important to say that, because what I didn't see, couldn't feel, couldn't think about was the fact that these two were not the same point. That test 1 was over here, and that the final exam was over here, and that I had time to improve things a little bit. It didn't occur to me. In my pit of despair, it was just, I failed test 1, going to fail the year, going to fail CTA. It's all a waste of time. I don't know, so stupid, more stupid than anyone else in the history of mankind. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. And the white noise just built in my head. I didn't study properly for the next test because I couldn't. I was absolutely, utterly paralyzed with fear. So sure, I showed up, I studied the chapters and I did the work, but I wasn't actually there. I wasn't studying effectively. I wasn't doing questions because I was just too terrified. I remember very clearly in the next test, when I sat down, I just couldn't do anything. I had my pen in my hand and I just couldn't do anything. Now we're in the actual test, right? This is when it actually counts. Half an hour in, I went to the bathroom, and I remember so clearly standing in front of the bathroom mirror and saying to myself, I can't do this anymore. I just can't carry on like this. I have to pull myself together. I have to do something about this. I cannot keep going like this. I've got to try. I have to just try. And it's not like it was a great enlightening moment. I didn't go back, write the tests and pass everything. I went back, brought my head back into the game. I brought myself back into the fight. I failed 2 of those tests. I hadn't prepped properly. I failed tax and I failed manic. And nothing changed other than the fact that I brought my head back in the game. I brought the fight back. I didn't believe that I was going to pass. I didn't suddenly feel positive. If you'd have asked me to bet whether or not I was going to pass CTA or not, I would have told you that I'd put money on the fact that I'd fail. And again, as I say, I don't know why I really carried on going. I don't know why I didn't give up, but I didn't. I just kept going. I never felt ready to write any exam. I never felt ready to write that final paper. And even when I eventually got my results back at the end of the year and I passed, I still didn't feel ready for CTA. My point with all of this is that showing up is part of the fight. Where you are at the moment, the results are out for test 1. They're horrible, they're terrible, they've made you feel bad, depressed, disappointed, guilty, embarrassed, ashamed, unhappy, hopeless. Those are the types of negative words that I'm hearing and that I hear. And what that, in a lot of ways, or what that often does, is it means that students don't write test 2, or they don't write all the papers for test 2. They kind of choose and go, I need to focus on that subject, so I'll just ignore the others, or whatever the case is. I need you to show up. I need you to just show up. Put the fight back, show up. You might fail test 2. If you haven't done your prep properly, and you haven't followed the process, and you haven't done what you needed to do, you may fail test 2. But remember, test 2 is over here. The final exam is over there. Okay? We're not there yet. There is still time to fight this thing. You don't have to believe that this is going to be okay. You just have to do the work. My emotions completely overwhelmed me. They drove my actions for quite some time, and I just stopped studying. The only thing that changed was that I brought myself back into the game, and that I stopped allowing my emotions to drive my decisions. All we need from you right now, all I want from you right now, is to recognize the depths of your emotions and how intense they are have nothing to do with what you're doing. You cannot let those emotions drive your decisions. It is too easy to find excuses and reasons about why you're not doing your studying. As a CTA student, especially as a part-time student, it is not hard to avoid your studying. There is so much else in the life, the world, that needs your attention. You have to work really hard at squeezing the studying into your life. It is just too easy to not push at the squeezing. Okay? And you know what I mean, right? If you want this thing, you will squeeze it in there. You will make space for that studying if you really want this thing. You know you will. When you disengage and when your brain has kind of told you, oh, I can't do this, and you're scared and you're vulnerable and you're feeling emotions, when your emotions are driving, you just don't push that hard. Okay? What I need you to do is to start pushing. Push back. Bring the fight back to the game. Put it in there. Put your brain back in there and carry on fighting. And at this point in time, for some of you, that means nothing other than just showing up for test 2, bringing the fight back in. After test 2, when we start prepping for test 3, then you show up and you show up properly. We give you tools, you use them, you fight back, but you do not let your emotions drive the decisions. If I'd have let my emotions drive my actions in CTA, I would not be here today. I don't know where I would be, but I probably wouldn't be happy. If I'd have given up because I thought I couldn't do it, I think there's a lot of other things in life I would have given up on out of fear. And having decisions driven by fear is not a great place to be. Allowing yourself to make decisions out of fear is not a great place to be in your life, whether it's about CTA or anything else in life. Having decisions driven by fear is not great. Separate those emotions from what you have to do, and understand that as horrible as you feel, as terrible as you feel, it doesn't mean that that's what the end result is going to be. It does not mean that you're not going to make CTA because you feel bad. All you need to do right now is just bring the fight back. Bring the fight back. Bring your brain. Bring your heart back. Write those tests. And keep fighting.